you give it to somebody to read, and you test them comparing their reading of the print and the screen, that they retain more from the print. And so I think that's important to keep in mind also as we adapt these new technologies.
Hi, John. Thank you for being here in Shippensburg with us today.
Thank you.
My grandmother was one of 9 children. She had 5 brothers. All 5 brothers were teachers and gentlemen farmers. So they lived part of the cartoon that you shared earlier regarding how many months of the year they would have taught in one-room schoolhomes, or houses as we call them today. I'm curious to know, because of your discussion about women being the teachers quite often and having so little education themselves, but once they were married, they were no longer allowed to be teachers.
Correct.
What is the ratio between men and women, and also did they become replaced then by yet another woman?
Well, the answer is yes, they were replaced by a younger woman. You'd bring in, if somebody got married at 22, you'd bring in somebody who was 16. I should emphasize that there were male teachers, but the difference was that the male teachers tended to do it as a stepping stone to something else. It may well be that your relatives were exceptions here. But you should know in the 19th century, there were several presidents who taught in one-room schools, but they taught there for a year or 2. James Garfield was one who taught the most, and it was several more than that. But John Adams taught in a one-room schoolhouse in Worcester, Mass. Andrew Jackson taught in a one-room school, and he famously said it was the hardest thing he ever did, including being president. But I think the point is that it was a stepping stone into other professions. You would read law after that, medicine, go into politics, et cetera. At a time when women's opportunities, professional opportunities, were much more circumscribed than that, it was the only thing they could do.
John, we've got several future educators here, and obviously you've told us a lot of information I think really surprised a lot of people about one-room schoolhouses. What advice do you give them? What can they take out of the values, the principles, the philosophy of a one-room schoolhouse that they can now take with them when they start teaching children in the future?
I think the first thing is an attentiveness to community. That is, remembering that your responsibilities as a teacher are primarily to the kids that are in front of you, but not exclusively. That the kids and you are part of something larger called the community, which does bear still an intimate relationship to the school. And so you have to be teaching everybody in a sense. You know, you are a teacher not just of the kids, but of the community. And I think that's hugely important. I also think it should make people more open to experimentation. Because these young women teachers were thrown into these situations with often very little preparation, they had to wing it. I'm not making a plea for winging it or for not being prepared, but I do think there was a spirit of experimentation that was really born of necessity at the time, which I think would be useful for all of us to hold on to and think about.
Well, John, there is just so much that we can learn from the one-room schoolhouse and from its history in this country. Before we wrap up the program, share with us some final thoughts on what you'd like us to take away from today's program.
I think the first thing I'd like us to take away is just the reminder that so many of the issues we grapple with today about what accountability is and what proper discipline is, and even what the purpose of school is, are actually very old questions. And for us to answer them as a democracy, I think all of us have to take account of how prior generations have answered them. That doesn't mean we have to agree with their answers, but I do think that we have to think about them. Think about how generations before us faced those issues and what kind of solutions they came up with. Secondly, I think it's really important that the one-room schools themselves, like this one, get preserved. They're all falling down, and as they fall down, a part of our shared past and our memory is falling down with them. And so I'm deeply grateful to Shippensburg for retaining this one-room schoolhouse, and I hope that other communities follow its example.
Well, John, thank you so much for all that you've taught us about the one-room schoolhouse and its place in our history. It has been such a pleasure getting to know you. We want to thank our audience as well. I think we've learned even more because of their insightful questions. That's been wonderful. Special thanks to Shippensburg University for hosting us for such a wonderful event here at Mount Jackson, an authentic one-room schoolhouse. If you would like to know more about Humanities on the Road, where we're going, what we're learning as we go, we'd encourage you to go to the website. It is humanitiesontheroad.org, and there you can find clips from different shows. There's lots of bonus material. You can continue the conversations that we start in these shows and learn all about what our broadcast schedule is and where we'll be heading next. So we would encourage you to do that. Humanities on the Road is a collaboration between the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and the Pennsylvania Cable Network. We are delighted to be able to work together and to travel all across Pennsylvania and ask audiences to learn something new about the world in which we live. So we hope that you have enjoyed this production of Humanities on the Road. I'm Tracy Matisak, and we'll see you next time.